In light of recent events where leakers are being arrested and tracked down by the Japanese police, I thought it would be a good time for me to make a video talking about the different translations and which one is better, or rather, more accurate compared to the original Japanese. I know this is the first video I, Tuna Mayo Boy, upload, but as I am a student of Japanese literature here in Japan, I believe I have at least some authority on this subject. For some background on me as a One Piece fan, I just recently, last year actually, got into One Piece, as I watched the anime in under a month and absolutely loved it. Now I read the manga in Japanese and keep up with both English speaking and Japanese speaking One Piece YouTubers. This is how I noticed that the English translations weren't all there all the time. Occasionally I would comment that on YouTube videos or add some additional information to further contextualize the translation. You might say that I can't properly compare the translations if I haven't read the whole series translated, but what I will focus on is the recent chapters, since that's what affects most One Piece fans currently. I might look into the translated chapters and volumes before Egghead in the future, but right now that is low on my priorities. So with that out of the way, I will simply begin with the conclusion. This is usually, I have found, more accurate to the original Japanese. Now, you might say that more accurate doesn't necessarily equate to better, and that would be correct. However, when it comes to the recent chapters, I must say that VIZ is just simply better quality. You might have a preference in either direction, and I won't say you're wrong for liking TCB or other scans. But I think it is important to keep in mind when reading it that they are prone to have more mistakes or nuance lost compared to the officials. Perhaps this is because the translation of the early leaks are focusing on speed rather than quality. This would be a huge shame, and personally I don't think early leaks are good for the community. But whatever the reason, this is, in my opinion, as someone fluent in both Japanese and English, the superior version. Of course, me just stating it as a matter of fact is not going to convince most of you. So I will now provide some examples from recent chapters. And as a disclaimer before I do so, I am in no way saying that VIZ is perfect. It is not. VIZ may not be perfect, but at least when it comes to recent chapters, it is the better translation. For the examples, I will just use chapter 1108 to save time and because it is fresh in all of our minds. So for one example, we have this one, where Vegapunk says, wherein TCB for some reason translated sukketsu as internal hemorrhaging, instead of simply saying blood loss, as VIZ correctly does. Alright, so this was a quick one, but I don't think a lot of these need a whole lot of explanation, as they are quite simple in how they are faulty or how some nuance has been lost in translation. The next one also goes to VIZ. Sanji says, which roughly means his human parts have decreased by quite a lot, huh? But VIZ in this case translates the meaning and changes the words a little to make it sound cooler, you could say, than the literal translation. It sounds cool in Japanese, but translated literally to English, as I demonstrated, it does sound a little weird and not as cool. As a Sanji fan, I like this translation. The scan, on the other hand, is less of the objective statement present in both the original and VIZ, which in my opinion is going perhaps a little too far away from the original sentiment. Next, Sanji says, after stating that Saturn's eyes look strange, which VIZ accurately translates as, and he is coated with poison or something. The scan takes this one step or maybe even several steps further and translates it as, he is completely coated in poison, when the original simply states that he is coated in poison, but not necessarily all over his body, which the scan would suggest. For the next one, we go to the last page. 私はドクターベガパンク しがない天才科学者だ is what Vegapunk says. For some weird reason, the scans translate this as the world's greatest and most humble scientific genius, when no such thing was really said by the genius scientist himself, Dr. Vegapunk. The VIZ is the more correct one here, as the Japanese roughly does translate to, I am Dr. Vegapunk, a humble genius scientist. Now, I could bring up more examples, but I feel like even just these three paints a picture of the difference between these two translations. I'm not saying that the scans are always like this, or that VIZ is always the better one, but all in all, VIZ is superior in most cases. Lastly, for fairness sake, I will leave this in as well, as it was translated similarly in scans 2. The original says, 巨人の強さもピンキリだ, which means, if we were to translate just an approximate meaning, that there are extremely strong giants, but there are also very weak ones. So there's a scale of strength within giants. This is of course something we know, as most giants we've seen thus far have had, let's just say, fairly lackluster performances when it comes to fighting. In this video, I'm mostly focused on a comparison of the translations. And of course, I could have gone into weaknesses of VIZ more as well, but this is not meant to be an exhaustive video, and I'm not a professional translator either. If you have any questions regarding a translation, feel free to ask away in the comment section below. I plan on making more videos covering One Piece, both analysis and theory videos, and perhaps videos like this one covering the translations. When I make analysis or theory videos, I will primarily use the Japanese manga and not refer to any translations unless I need to clarify an error or some nuance lost in a translated version. So, if you would like to see videos like that, feel free to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned for the future of this newly born channel.